He's been called a heretic, a madman, a visionary, and even the world's first monotheist. A pharaoh who tried to erase 1,000 years of Egyptian tradition, all in the name of a single, universal god. But was he a divine messenger or a political schemer who plunged his kingdom into chaos? This is the untold story of Akhenaten, the pharaoh who defied gods and men to worship the sun. For over 3,000 years, ancient Egypt was a land of countless gods, from Ra, the mighty sun god, to Osiris, the lord of the underworld. Every aspect of life was governed by a complex and ancient pantheon. Temples were the centers of economic and political power, and the priests who served these gods held immense influence. But around 1353 BC, a new pharaoh ascended the throne, and everything was about to change. His name was Amenhotep IV. Initially, his reign seemed conventional. He was the son of the powerful Amenhotep III, who presided over an era of unprecedented prosperity and stability. But the young pharaoh had a radical idea, a vision that would shake the foundations of Egypt. He began to promote a minor aspect of the sun god, the Aten, represented not as a human or animal, but as a simple solar disk whose rays ended in hands, extending life and prosperity to all creation. This was more than just a preference for one god over another. It was a theological revolution. Within a few years, Amenhotep IV changed his name to Akhenaten, meaning effective for the Aten. This was a bold declaration. He was no longer just a king, he was the living representative of his one true God. He then launched a campaign that was unthinkable to his people. He ordered the closure of the temples dedicated to the old gods, especially the powerful cult of Amun-Ra at Thebes. Imagine the shock and outrage. This was like shutting down every church, mosque, and synagogue in a country overnight. The vast wealth of these temples was confiscated, and the powerful priesthood was disbanded, effectively stripping them of all their authority. But Akhenaten didn't stop there. He abandoned Thebes, the traditional capital of Egypt for centuries, and built an entirely new city in the middle of the desert. He called it Akhetaten, the horizon of the Aten, known today as Amarna. This was to be a holy city, a clean slate dedicated solely to the worship of his god. He moved his entire court, his administration, and thousands of workers to this remote location. The art from this period is just as revolutionary as the religion. For the first time, the pharaoh was not depicted as an idealized, muscular god-king. Instead, Akhenaten was shown with a long face, slender limbs, a protruding belly, and wide hips. His family life with his famous queen, Nefertiti, and their daughters was portrayed with an unprecedented intimacy and naturalism. They are shown kissing, playing, and mourning scenes of human emotion never before seen in rigid rail art. So, what was this new religion all about? At its core, the Aten was a universal god, the creator of all humanity, not just Egyptians. This was a radical departure from the traditional, nationalistic gods of Egypt. The Great Hymn to the Aten, a text found inscribed in a tomb at Amarna, is a beautiful piece of poetry that praises the sun disk as the sole creator and sustainer of the universe. It describes how the Aten brings light and life to the world each day, and how all creatures, from the fish in the river to the people in distant lands, are part of its creation. For Akhenaten, he and his family were the only intermediaries between the Aten and humanity. Only through him could the people know the one true God. This sounds visionary, even beautiful. So why is Akhenaten often remembered as the heretic king? While he was building his utopian city and composing hymns, the rest of the Egyptian empire was beginning to crumble. Ladders found at Amarna, known as the Amarna ladders, reveal a king who was neglectful of foreign policy. Vassal kings from Syria and Palestine begged for military aid against invading forces, but their pleas were often ignored. Akhenaten seemed far more interested in his religious project than in managing his empire. At home, the economy, which was heavily reliant on the old temple system, was in turmoil. The common people, whose entire spiritual life had been uprooted, were likely confused and resentful. Their familiar gods and festivals were gone, replaced by a distant, abstract deity they could only access through a strange-looking pharaoh. Akhenaten's reign lasted for about 17 years. After his death, his revolution collapsed almost immediately. His son, the young Tutankhamun, that King Tut, ascended the throne. Under the influence of the old priests and officials, he quickly abandoned the Aten, changed his name from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun, and moved the capital back to Thebes. The old gods were restored, and the temples were reopened. The city of Akhenaten was abandoned too. The desert sands, and a systematic campaign began to erase Akhenaten from history. His name was chiseled off monuments, his statues were smashed, and he was referred to in later records simply as the enemy or that criminal. For nearly 3,000 years, he was almost completely forgotten. It wasn't until the 19th century, when archaeologists rediscovered the ruins of Amarna, that the story of this revolutionary pharaoh was pieced back together. So, how should we view Akhenaten today? Was he a true monotheist, a precursor to the Abrahamic faiths? Some scholars, including Sigmund Freud, have famously speculated about a connection between his ideas and the origins of Judaism. Or was he an autocratic despot whose religious fanaticism was a cover for a political power grab, a way to break the influence of the powerful Amen priesthood? The truth is likely somewhere in between. He was a man of immense conviction, a poet, and a radical thinker who dared to imagine a different world. But his vision was imposed from the top down, with little regard for the traditions of his people or the stability of his kingdom. He was a man ahead of his time, but his revolution came at a great cost. The story of Akhenaten is a timeless lesson about the tension between tradition and revolution, faith and power. It reminds us that even in the ancient world, a single individual's ideas could challenge an entire civilization. What do you think? Was Akhenaten a saint or a sinner, a visionary or a tyrant? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories that time forgot. See you in the next video.